Hello, welcome to Unscripted. I am just Bill, and in this session, I want to talk about the 7 levels of consciousness. As we know throughout our mystical, religious teachings, and even in science, there are denoted, the various levels of resonance of consciousness. Consciousness being an energy, that we personally express. We get to choose how we focus our consciousness. So today all I want to do is just to share with you the various levels of consciousness, and I know that we all will see ourselves resonating in not just one but many consciousness. Many people generally will vacillate between the various consciousness, but today we're going to share the definitions of consciousness, the various levels, and see what we can glean from this share. Okay, so when I talk about consciousness, these are the things that we apply ourselves to. The 7 levels are instinctual, individualist, conformist, rational, pluralistic, integral, and transcendent. So what I will do is read, according to John Smotherman, the 7 levels of consciousness. And we will start at the bottom because there's lower consciousness, the self-consciousness, and also the higher consciousness. Now, when we talk about levels of consciousness, there are also 7 levels of the human aura, which coordinate with the levels of consciousness. The first level being the etheric, the second level being the emotional, the third level being the mental, the fourth level being astral, the fifth level being the template, sixth level being the celestial, and the 7th level being casual. Okay, so all these things are connected in some sort of way, and if you are so compelled, you could go on and learn more about this. Just Google 7 levels of consciousness. Google the number 7. It'll tell you a lot of things that heretofore perhaps we were not familiar with. But on to the 7 levels of consciousness, starting with the instinctual level. Okay, this is the most basic and fundamental level of human consciousness, and is not much more than the survival instinct. We've all experienced that, okay, especially when we're threatened. This level is reactionary and focuses on the acquisition of the basic resources necessary to sustain life. Conflicts for people functioning at this level of consciousness are typically viewed as, and sometimes are, struggles with life and death ramifications. And it goes on to say that roughly 10% of the world's population functions primarily at this level. So when we consider, people that are in distress, or communities or countries or areas of our globe that are in distress due to famine and disease, we'll see a high level of instinctual consciousness. Okay, there. It's about survival. The next meal, the end of suffering. Okay, the next level of consciousness is the individualist. Okay, this level of consciousness centers around the defense and advancement of the ego as the apex of physical consciousness. And we all know people like that, don't we? Yeah, even me, I get like that sometimes. People functioning at this level are focused on the avoidance or elimination of threats to their ego, person, and property. This frequently surfaces as a need to control their environment and other people. Failure to have control is viewed as a grave detriment to that person's ego and security. At this level of consciousness, the person's ego and security are typically undifferentiated from their perceived well-being. Roughly 20% of the world's population functions primarily at this level. Now already, just with the 2 consciousness, I can actually see at times, now and in the past, where I have been vibrating at that level of consciousness, with ego or survival. Okay, the third level of consciousness, as we're, approaching the middle level of consciousness, the third is called the conformist. Okay, this level of consciousness centers around the need for acceptance and often manifests as a herd or tribal mentality. Members of the perceived tribe are valued over others as they offer the support system the individual perceives themselves needing. We find this a lot in our educational institutions, our religious institutions, our political institutions, our geographical demographics, our patriotism. We find it, our race, our sex, sexual preferences. This acceptance and ostracization of people that do not look like us, act like us, think like us, walk like us, talk like us. Okay? While relationships become important in and of themselves, persons outside of the tribe are viewed as less important, inferior, or even dangerous. This level of consciousness often carries a strong emphasis on compliance with the tribal rules and customs. The importance of these codes of conduct are evaluated by their level of acceptance within the tribe or the herd, rather than by the merit of the rules themselves. So we've been in situations where you do it just because I said do it, and that's the way we do it, and there is no diversion from that. The tribe or clan can be any type of identifiable group. It can be a family network, a religious group, or even a social economic class. It can be any group with which the individual strongly identifies. Any group with which the individual strongly identifies. Roughly 40% of the world's population functions primarily at that level. And that might be because we all are vying to be accepted, understood, embraced, loved. But we have to watch where we seek that. But that's for you to choose, because it's all your choice. But I'm just here to share the levels of consciousness. The fourth level of consciousness, which is right at the middle, of the higher and lower consciousness, is called the rational. The rational. At this level of consciousness, formal rational thinking predominates. Formal rational thinking predominates. Logic and reason are employed in evaluating situations and relationships. The moral standard of this level is viewed in terms of fairness, justice, effectiveness. The scope of consideration for applying these values typically extends beyond the tribal boundaries that we mentioned in the conformist level, and roughly 30% of the world's population functions primarily at this level. What we're finding these days is, as we're having a shift in consciousness, more awareness due to the media and electronic technology, such as the World Wide Web and social groups, we're watching consciousness come together and starting to ascend, come into a higher recognition of self, a higher recognition of what is possible, where before we were mostly our societies were based on instinctual individualists and conformists. So as we start to blossom, so to speak, into that rational thinking, we have the ability to keep on going, because our consciousness has no boundaries except the ones that we choose to acknowledge or choose to follow, but we don't have to. It is all our choice. But like I said, roughly 30% of the world's population right now, according to John Smotherman and other sources, function at the rational level, making decisions for themselves, weighing out their options, and so on and so forth. The fifth level of consciousness is called pluralistic. Now we're getting into things that, let me just read it and you can take it for yourself. Pluralistic. At this level of consciousness, an egalitarian view predominates, and people are valued simply because they are human beings, not because they are right or excel at some particular trait or skill. Love becomes the moral standard. Empathy becomes a globally usable skill and can be extended to any human being. The unfortunate thing is, right now, only roughly 10% of the world's population functions primarily at this level. However, what's happening is, as we're seeing the consciousness move up this scale to a higher order of resonance, we're seeing these numbers are increasing as people are becoming more conscious of other human beings being their equal, deserving the same things. We feel things like when we have disasters such as the Haiti and, Katrina and, the tsunamis and the earthquakes, that is felt globally, because the consciousness of the people of this globe, the community, humanity, is starting to be connected with each other. And with this connection, that energy is like a wave in the ocean, is coming about all of us, affecting us in some small way. So these numbers in the future will be increasing as more and more people will be becoming less instinctual, moving into the individuals, into the conformists, out of the conformists into the rational, and out of the rational into the pluralistic. And that gives me joy, just knowing that we are evolving. We are, our consciousness is being raised, and it's all because we are acknowledging and understanding that we are connected to everything. Okay, we are connected to that thing in us that is calling for, us to evolve personally, and we're seeking, as Paul said, diligently seek, and we're seeking answers to the things heretofore that were not given to us because we accepted the conformist mentality of our churches, our schools, our families, our parents, our friends, our neighborhoods. So now we're realizing that, perhaps they did have some particular function that helped us. However, it just was not enough to give us what our heart was desiring, so therefore we're seeking. And with that seeking, comes more consciousness focused on different things that heretofore we were not aware of, or just did not pay attention to, or said that was not for me. But now we are examining these things. So that was a pluralistic level, and that was level number 5. The 6th level of consciousness is called the integral. The integral. At this level of consciousness, the inherent value of all people and all levels of consciousness becomes apparent. See, in other words, every level of consciousness has a function. Even if the function is, hey, I don't want to be that, I need to be this, it is giving me an example. Also, it's showing the need for our expansion consciously, our conscious awareness of what we can become and what we are becoming. Okay? Again, at this level of consciousness, the inherent value of all people and all levels of consciousness becomes apparent. If we look back in truth, we can see where we were resonating in those places, stuck in various places that, consequently we made it out, thank, goodness, that we made it out and beyond those, only to embrace a brighter possibility, of our experience. The dispassionate reason of the rational level and the irrational love of the pluralistic level are viewed as integral components of an effectively functioning system. The various views, approaches, and considerations of all the levels of consciousness are seen to function harmoniously rather than competitively. Roughly 1% of the world's population functions primarily at this level. And I say primarily, not that we have not experienced this from time to time, but primarily at this level. But, the more we practice elevating our consciousness, these numbers will increase. And as we create the habits of being empathic, understanding, accepting, and observant, and still sometimes, we will find that our consciousness will raise above our old selves. And it wasn't really who we were, it was who we defined ourselves to be in our past, that we accepted blindly. But now that our eyes are starting to open in reference to that we have the choice to apply our consciousness where we will, and the will is the key element. It is about your will, then we realize that we can do so much more, and these numbers will increase. Okay? That was the integral level of consciousness. Okay? Now, the final highest level of consciousness, that we can experience, while in this body, if you would, and I'm not going to go beyond here, but it's the transcendent, okay? The transcendent level of consciousness is a sense of the divinity of all things. That is what emerges. Now, we at times will feel our divinity, sometimes that light slips through our dark veils, of self or reason or logic, right and rote, but what we're looking at is to see, what we're looking for is to see the divine connectedness of all things. I know in our meditations we practice, our breathing meditation, we practice our breath, to knowing that we are giving life unto life and life is giving life unto us. So what we give in our breath, we are doing a symbiotic exchange. And it's a perfect exchange because that which we give our breath gives back to us our breath. Isn't that a beautiful thing? But we start to realize the connectedness of all things. Our bodies are components, of the matter, the minerals, and the things of the earth. So we are connected. We talk about water in the experiments that Dr. Emoto has done, and we see that all water is connected in consciousness. Now, we never thought about water having consciousness. But there's been some great experiments that have been done, with solar flares and the elements of water here on Earth, and you realize that they are, not symbiotic, but are of one consciousness. So transcendent. At this level of consciousness, a sense of the divinity of all things emerges. Perception shifts from the harmonic interaction of disparate parts. In other words, it's no longer about me and you getting wrong, as seen in the integral level, to a holistic view of all reality. In other words, it is all one whole. All of creation is one breathing, perfect organism. All the parts of the universe are seen as one organic whole, expressing itself in limitless ways. Roughly 0.1% of the world's population functions primarily at this level. So, that is the 7 levels of consciousness. If it's something that interests you or intrigues you to go beyond, guaranteed, you're actually extending your boundaries, raising and elevating your consciousness, simply because you have chosen to look beyond. And when we look beyond, we will find things. We will find more of self. So, thank you for being here with us. Have a great day.